feel about, but yes, out of majburi, एक दो कप मेरा भी हो जाता है. So on an average, everybody consumes 2 cups of tea. हमारी इंडिया की population कितनी है? India and China together is more than half the inventory of total population of this planet. I would make you stand and do a pole dance here. If see you doing a crap in class. So either you learn to be patient or practice to do a pole dance. अच्छा ये वाला पार्ट हटा दे. मेरा से ज़्यादा ये देती. अच्छा listen. So we were talking about the India and China, the two countries where the tea consumption is the most. ठीक है, भारत और चीन जो है, इन दोनों की टोटल पॉपुलेशन पूरी दुनिया के पॉपुलेशन का more than 50% है. आधी दुनिया खुद में ये दो कंट्री. और जस्ट मैंने कोशिश करो अगर ऑन एन एवरेज एक आदमी 2 कप भी चाय पीता, जहाँ पे हमारे मम्मी पापा जो दिन में शायद 8-10 कप पीते हैं, मैं ऑन एन एवरेज 2 कप करके बोल रहा हूँ. तो 150 बिलियन इन इंडिया and almost the similar numbers in China are consuming such a great number of tea. सोचो कितना बड़ा मार्केट है चाय का. उतना चाय तो प्रोड्यूस करना पड़ेगा ना. Now every cup requires 2 to 3 grams of tea leaves. 2 से 3 ग्राम. 150 million. Anyone who is good in math, please take out your cell phones and do a quick calculation. सोचो कितने कप्स होंगे. चाइना की पॉपुलेशन निकालो पहले कितनी है. 3 billion. They are close to India. 1.5 billion के आसपास है. 1.5 trillion you said. 1.3 billion. That might not be the right figure. India is 1.5 billion. Indian population is 1.4 billion. Close to 1.5 billion. China is the second. China is second. Now जो भी नंबर आपका रहा है इंडिया और चाइना का, उसको मल्टीप्लाई करो 3 ग्राम्स पर कप के हिसाब से. सोचो द अमाउंट ऑफ टी टू बी प्रोड्यूस एवरी ईयर. ये एक दिन का कंजम्पशन है भाई. उसको मल्टीप्लाई करना होगा 365 से, एक साल की. Now this was for 1 day. You have to multiply with 365. Just imagine the quantity of tea required on an average to meet the demands for only these two countries. I'm excluding China, जहाँ पे लोग काफ़ी चाय पीते हैं. I'm excluding Bhutan. I'm excluding countries like Nepal, बांग्लादेश, केन्या. बहुत सारी कंट्रीज हैं जहाँ पे चाय और बहुत ज़्यादा पॉपुलर है. Including Kenya, Britain. Clear? Likewise, the coffee is also very popular. जैसे इंडिया और चाइना में लोग ज़्यादा चाय पीते हैं. Similarly, countries in Europe, whether you talk about Eastern Europe or Western Europe, there the consumption for coffee is great. फिनलैंड नाम सुना आप सबने? Yes sir. फिनलैंड में एक जगह है स्कैंडिनेविया, जहाँ नॉर्वे, स्वीडन, डेनमार्क, all these countries together they make this region called Scandinavia. फिनलैंड में ऑन एन एवरेज एक आदमी पूरे साल में 12 kg 12 kg कॉफी पीते हैं. 12 kg. एक आदमी, एक अकेला इंसान ऑन एन एवरेज 12 kg कॉफी पीता है. 1 kg अकेला. Do you think it's a usual number? Yes. So if we have got more than 50% or nearly 60% crowd who go for tea, there is still a 35 to 40% people who go for coffee. और कॉफ़ी ऐसी चीज़ है unlike non-alcoholic beverages which is consumed by everybody, even irrespective to their gender, irrespective to their age. मतलब भी अंदर मिला. सोनू पता नहीं. You were the one who was sleeping last class. Last class में आप सो रहे थे ना? You sleep today, and trust me, you'll find yourself being sold on any of the shop, skinned, cut in pieces. स्टार्ट हम लोग 12 kg coffee on an average फिनलैंड में एक आदमी कंज्यूम करता है। अच्छा, can we not have second guest today? Is it really required for you? Anyone who is not interested, please get up and leave. I said 2 second yes because you already been through this session. So if you are not interested, not inclined to learn, the door is open, you can leave. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
Good. If I hear one more murmuring, an entire second year will be outstanding in some. Volleyball can do it. So coffee is also very important. We are 60%, 60-65% population chai piti hai, that's okay. But what about the coffee? Remaining 35 to 40% जो crowd है, especially ये जो northern hemisphere या जो टॉपिक ऑफ कैप्रिकॉर्न के नीचे वाला जो एरिया जो ठंडा बेल्ट है, ठीक? अगर आपने धरती को देखा है, इक्वेटर के ऊपर वाला एरिया ट्रॉपिक ऑफ कैंसर है, उसके नीचे वाला ट्रॉपिक ऑफ कैप्रिकॉर्न, इसके ऊपर वाले जो एरिया है जो 35-40 डिग्री ऊपर में इक्वेटर से, ये ठंडे रीजन और वहाँ पे ठंडे क्लाइमेट होने की वजह से कॉफ़ी वहाँ पे ज़्यादा पॉपुलर और कॉफ़ी गोज विद देयर पैलेट वेरी वेल। उनके वहाँ पे चॉकलेट का कंजम्पशन ज़्यादा, सो उनका जो पैलेट है इट इज़ मोर इन लाइन विद कॉफ़ी दैन टी, ठीक है, इसलिए कॉफ़ी का कंजम्पशन ज़्यादा ना। एक और चीज़, डू नॉट ट्रस्ट मी, टेक आउट योर सेल फोन एंड जस्ट look into the revenue cost. आपने नाम सुना कोस्टा कॉफी का, स्टारबक्स का नाम सुना है ना? Please take out your cell phones, everyone, even second years, and search the amount of revenue these outlets have made. How much revenue Costa Coffee made in year 24-25 across globe. I'm talking about. जब मैं बोलूँगा तब शुरू करूँगा, अभी नहीं। सेशन अभी जस्ट जनरल फिलर 1.3440. This is for 2018. Which outlet are you talking? Which brand? Costa Coffee. 1.5 क्या? 1.5 billion dollar. How much is 1 billion by the way? 1 billion कितना होता है? 1 billion. 10 million is 1 billion. Absolutely correct. So 1 billion, 1.5 billion US dollar was the revenue generated only by Costa Coffee. We are not talking about यहाँ पे Starbucks. We are not talking about your different bistros. एक छोटे से ब्रांड की हमने बात की है जिसने दुनिया भर में कितना रेवेन्यू जनरेट किया, और ये यूएस डॉलर है, इसको मल्टीप्लाई करो इंडियन करेंसी से, देन यू विल गेट द रियल अमाउंट इन इंडियन करेंसी. 151. Such a great market. Yes, no. Yes or no? Why there are so many sayings? इतने ज़्यादा ऑब्सेशन क्यों है कॉफ़ी को लेकर? बहुत सारे कोटेशंस है कॉफ़ी. Where there is a coffee, there is a way. Where there is a the world starts with coffee. The life begins with coffee. क्यों दुनिया इतनी obsessed है कॉफ़ी के साथ? Because coffee really has been able to get into their life so complexly that they always equate coffee with something or other. Okay? Now to understand this topic, we'll be going little deep into the roots to understand what the coffee is, how it is made, and I'm sure you'll be greatly benefited. Okay? Should we begin?
Yes, sir.
So let's start with a video presentation today. Video presentation से हम लोग start करेंगे, and then I'll take up my
Instant coffee, single origin, decaf, latte, espresso, americano. Coffee is the second most popular beverage in the world, second only to water.
Alright, now this part, अगर तुमने notice किया हो, they are saying that coffee is the second most popular beverage in the world. Now this is pertaining to Europe. This is only Arish Siddharth. This is only pertaining to Europe. Practically, it is not possible to have coffee being the highest consumed beverage. अगर आप यहाँ पे glass में ही आप देखो, how many of you consume coffee and how frequently do you consume? You just compare yourself. So practically, it is not possible. How frequently? पूरे दिन बकेट के अंदर बैठे रहते हैं. अच्छा यहाँ पे कितने? Let's have a quick vote. How many of you like having tea? बाकी वो ये सारे हमारे यहाँ पे. And what about the rest? कितने कॉफी वाले हैं?
पहली चाय पीते हैं रास्ते में.
Boys, hands down. Listen. That's great. If you have more coffee, which means your family's per capita income is great. Yes, obviously, and you can pay your fees in time. There is no grant even extra. Right, so I'll replay this video for everyone. Let's begin, boys.
Instant coffee, single origin, decaf, latte, espresso, americano. Coffee is the second most popular beverage in the world, second only to water. In the US alone, more than 450 million cups of coffee are consumed per day. But the top spot for coffee lovers in the world goes to Finland, where each person consumes an average of 12 kilograms of coffee beans per year, according to the International Coffee Organization. In fact, coffee is of such importance in human lives that it's even included in most military rations. But where did our love for this energy-boosting Java juice come from? And how exactly did it spread across the globe? You're watching Explore Mode, and today we're diving into the history of coffee. The story of the birth of coffee is unclear and unverified, but it seems to narrow down to two origin stories. One takes place in Ethiopia and the other takes us to Yemen. Let's go to Africa first. Legend says that around 850 AD in the region of Kaffa, Ethiopia, a young goat herd called Kaldi noticed that when his goats ate a small red berry, they became highly active. Intrigued, Kaldi plucked some berries for himself and noticed that he too felt energized after eating them. He wanted to share the effects of these magic berries, so he took a few to a nearby monastery, but the head monk, intimidated by their strange influence, rejected them and threw them into a fire. The result was a hypnotizing aroma that captivated the monk. So after the fire was stoked, they picked up the roasted coffee beans that were left among the embers, ground them, and produced the first ever cup of coffee. Now to the other origin story. Legend says that in ancient Yemen there was a man called Sheikh Omar who was famous for his healing powers. For reasons unknown, Omar was banished from his community to a cave in the desert. Hungry and desperate, Omar ate the red berries from a nearby bush, but was taken aback by their bitter flavor. Keen on making the most out of his meager meal, Omar roasted the beans, ground them up, and boiled them with water, producing an energizing liquid that sustained him for days. When his community learned of his magical concoction, he was invited to return. Now, both of these accounts make for good stories, but we can't know for sure if that's how the first cup of joe actually came to be. But it seems, according to historical evidence, that the crown for the first cup of coffee goes to both Yemen and Ethiopia. The plant itself is native to Ethiopia, while the first real evidence we have of its roasting and brewing as we consume coffee nowadays comes from Yemen. See, early records show that during the 15th century, coffee was consumed among Muslim communities around Yemen, specifically the Sufis, because it helped them stay up for long religious ceremonies. The coffee they consumed was brought by merchants from Ethiopia. During the 1600s, the beverage quickly began spreading to Europe. The Netherlands was the first country to open coffee plantations in Sri Lanka in the early 1600s. The Dutch East India Company began importing coffee from then Java and Ceylon in 1711. Pretty soon, other European countries followed suit. In the 1700s, the French took it to the Caribbean, at the same time as the Portuguese introduced it in Brazil. In the late 19th century, the Spanish had taken it to Central and South America. It's no wonder that coffees from these regions are nowadays considered to be among the best in the world. But aren't all coffee beans the same? Not quite. Time for an Express Explorer explanation. Start the clock. There are many types of coffee beans, but the ones that are most common are Arabica, Robusta, Liberica, and Excelsa. They all grow in what is known as the coffee bean belt, a region located between the tropics of Capricorn and Cancer that has the ideal climate and temperature for coffee to thrive. According to the International Coffee Organization, 20 billion pounds of coffee are produced in the bean belt per year. The most common type of coffee bean is the Arabica. Historians believe it was the first type of coffee to be cultivated as it comes from the Ethiopian highlands. Nowadays, 60% of the coffee consumed around the world is Arabica. It's mostly grown in Latin America and is known for its sweet, fruity, and slightly acidic taste. However, it takes Arabica coffee plants 7 years to fully mature and be ready for harvest, making it pricier than its other bean brothers. The second most common type of coffee bean is Robusta. This is the one you'll probably see in supermarkets and your neighborhood grocery store. They're grown in Africa and Indonesia, and it's fairly common due to its high caffeine concentration, making it perfect for espressos and an energizing cup of joe. But that also makes coffee from Robusta beans more bitter in taste. Liberica and Excelsa beans are grown in certain parts of Southeast Asia, and therefore make up a really small percentage of the coffee consumed in the world. This also makes them pricier than Robusta and Arabica beans. Currently, Brazil is the world's largest coffee exporter, pumping out 45 million bags per year of mainly Arabica beans. Coffee really stuck in Europe. The wine and beer people would customarily have for breakfast were slowly replaced by ginger juice. But although coffee has become the West's favorite energy booster, people forget it was once considered the devil's drink. Because of coffee's Islamic origins, it was shunned by Christians in the West. They were suspicious of its effect.
Let's stop it here. Anyway, we'll be discussing everything together. But this story, the coffee was believed to have originated either in Ethiopia, Arish, Sinabati, and next time I will not say this, or Yemen. Right? They have shared two of the very famous tales about the origin of coffee. Though as far as different historical evidences are concerned, it remains topic of debate. Different books has different debate. Some say that it was invented in Yemen by a person called Sheikh Umar, who was, because of some family problem, he left his family and went into jungle to live. And while he was staying in a cave kind of structure, he felt hungry, he came out, he realized the cave was a house for small tiny berries, and when out of hunger he chewed those berries. They were possibly not ripened, that's why he felt bitterness in the coffee, but at the same time he realized that it has some kind of soothing effect on his hunger. The coffee has got a neuropsychotic drug called caffeine, right? Now this neuropsychotic drug is it's a constituent of methylene, which acts as a it numbs down your gives a ease to your nervous system. जो nerve cells होते हैं उनको settle करने में, calm down करने में help, and also takes care of appetite. There is a certain proportion of sugar in it. Sugar is from carb kills your appetite. So to kill the bitterness, he boiled the berries for himself, and then he consumed it. He realized that the berries had some kind of benefit because it made him be afresh. Tiredness chala gaya uska, the hunger was taken care of. So he said, I must share this discovery of mine, and he went back to the family and spoke to everybody. And this is how the coffee came in limelight. This was the role of Sheikh Umar in Yemen. The other story is of a Abyssinian goat गोट हर्ड कौन होता है? जो ये बकरों को ये जो हाँ they are the kind of look after them, take them in fields, look after while they are grazing, and take them back in the evening. So they were one of the goat herds called Kaldi in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is in early days were called as Abyssinia. क्या बोलते थे? So that is why in books you will find it is written as goat herd from Abyssinia, Kaldi. So he realized there some of the goats were excessively active during the whole day. They were always playful in comparison to other goats. Then he realized there must be a reason. He wanted to understand what is the actual feed they chewed on to or they ate, which made them feel more energized and active. So he followed one day and realized the goats were chewing on to those berries of possibly a coffee beans. He picked up those coffee beans, took it into the monastery and said that these berries I feel has some kind of medicinal benefit. This is what has happened to my goat. That they said it's all crap, nothing happens. And they threw it in burning fire. The coffee, when the skin burned, it created an aromatic smoke. And it was so inducive that it made them understand that it has something that should have been examined before thrown into the fire. But once the fire subsided and they realized that the beans were still, because after burning the beans were small, they went deep into the bonfire between the goats and fallen on floor. So they were left without burning. But they got roasted. So they took them out, nicely cleaned it, and then they boiled it with water to understand how it tastes, how it feels. This is how it is believed that the coffee came in origin. So both the noble notions that we shared with you today. Now since there is a philosophy in Christianity, they said that coffee is an evil drink because it does not belong to Christianity. It was formed by somebody in Yemen. So they said, it's an evil drink, and if we consume this, we might get possessed by Satans. So they went to the Pope, and they said, this is what the thing is, and it is said that it's a devil's drink. If we consume, we will be possessed by the Satans. Then the Pope tried, the head priest of the church tried, and he said, no, it is not. But if you feel so, let's baptize the coffee beans. So they baptize the coffee beans so that the people are left without any confusion and they can consume it freely. Right? So this story will also talk about this.
And considered it a pagan drink. It's sweet, fruity, and
I just moved it a bit back, rewind it so that you can.
60% of the coffee consumed around the world is Arabica. It's mostly grown in Latin America and is known for its sweet, fruity, and slightly acidic taste. However, it takes Arabica coffee plants 7 years to fully mature and be ready for harvest, making it pricier than its other bean brothers. The second most common type of coffee bean is Robusta. This is the one you'll probably see in supermarkets and your neighborhood grocery store. They're grown in Africa and Indonesia, and it's fairly common due to its high caffeine concentration, making it perfect for espressos and an energizing cup of joe. But that also makes coffee from Robusta beans more bitter in taste. Liberica and Excelsa beans are grown in certain parts of Southeast Asia, and therefore make up a really small percentage of the coffee consumed in the world. This also makes them pricier than Robusta and Arabica beans. Currently, Brazil is the world's largest coffee exporter, pumping out 45 million bags per year of mainly Arabica beans. Coffee really stuck in Europe. The wine and beer people would customarily have for breakfast were slowly replaced by ginger juice. But although coffee has become the West's favorite energy booster, people forget it was once considered the devil's drink. Because of coffee's Islamic origins, it was shunned by Christians in the West.
It's said that because of the coffee they believe in early Europe, early times. In Europe they believe it has an Islamic origin, and it might have some kind of negative the forces being followed.
They were suspicious of its effects and considered it parts of Southeast Asia, and therefore make up a really small percentage of the coffee consumed in the world. This also makes them pricier than Robusta and Arabica beans. Currently, Brazil is the world's largest coffee exporter, pumping out 45 million bags per year of mainly Arabica beans. Coffee really stuck in Europe. The wine and beer people would customarily have for breakfast were slowly replaced by ginger juice. But although coffee has become the West's favorite energy booster, people forget it was once considered the devil's drink. Because of coffee's Islamic origins, it was shunned by Christians in the West. They were suspicious of its effects and considered it a pagan drink. It wasn't until 700 years after its discovery, when the drink began to pick up in popularity, that the issue was brought up to then Pope Clement VIII. Catholic devouts were hoping their leader would denounce the drink immediately, but to their surprise, the Pope took a "don't knock it until you try it" approach and decided to take a sip before completely banning the so-called devil's drink. His verdict? Coffee was here to stay. But to convince his followers that coffee would not make it easier for a demon to possess them, the Pope actually baptized coffee beans in order to officially pronounce them Satan-free. And since it's been a coffee free-for-all in the West. The first coffee houses in the world appeared during the 15th century in the Arabian Peninsula, and they were called kave-khane. Coffee houses were a place where people would gather to play games, listen to music, or even have heated political debates. At the same time, as coffee grew in popularity among Europeans during the 1600s, so did the appearance of coffee houses there. But unlike taverns or bars, which were the place where men would gather to discuss politics and daily conundrums, coffee houses were considered a place for intellectuals. In Britain, coffee houses were called penny universities, because for a penny, you could get a cup of coffee and engage in cerebral conversations with businessmen and scholars fraternizing at the shop. But early coffee houses weren't open to everyone. The British and French banned women from entering their premises. Only the Germans saw no problem with ladies and gentlemen taking part in discussions together. But it wasn't just about intellectual conversations. Many people at the time believed that coffee was a very potent remedy for, well, everything apparently. Take a look at this coffee ad from 1652. It claims coffee can treat headaches, the cough of the lungs, dropsy, gout, and scurvy. Oh, and apparently it also helped prevent miscarriages in childbearing women. Some beverage this was. By the 18th century, coffee had become the drink in every country it had been introduced to, but people still couldn't get enough of the drink. In 1901, a Japanese-American chemist called Satoru Kato created the first version of instant coffee. He even patented his invention in 1903, but his creation didn't really catch on. The mass production of instant coffee is attributed to George Washington, a Belgian inventor who owned production facilities in Brooklyn, New York. His product was called Red Coffee. Instant coffee played a starring role right at the end of the First World War. In 1918, the U.S. military was buying 37,000 pounds of coffee per day, and on occasions where soldiers had no access to water, they would just pour the instant coffee packet into their mouths and munch on the caffeine powder for energy. Americano coffee was born in the Second World War, when Americans stationed in Italy became homesick for the way they had their cup of joe. See, Italians had two ways of consuming Java at the time, espresso or cappuccino. Both of these options were too thick and bitter for American GIs, who are used to drip coffee. So Italian coffee shops, in solidarity with the coffee-thirsty Americans, began selling their espressos with a cup of hot water for them to dilute the espresso shot. Eventually, they began mixing water with the espresso for the GIs, and began calling the drink an Americano. Today, coffee continues to reign supreme. The global coffee industry earns an estimated $60 billion annually, and Starbucks alone has 29,865 shops quenching the coffee thirst of 78 markets around the world. No matter where we're from, we can all agree that a good cup of coffee can make our day. And you? How do you like your coffee? Thanks for watching.
Now it itself proves that how important the coffee as a commodity is concerned. Now to continue the video presentation. Coffee, if you ask me as commodity what it is, it's obviously the beans of a flowering plant which belongs to Rubiaceae family. The genus is Rubiaceae. Which family the coffee belongs to? Rubiaceae. And tea belong to which family? Camellia Sinensis. So the coffee belongs to Rubiaceae family, and if you ask what the coffee is in terms of the beverage, coffee in terms of the beverages, the beans of coffee which has been roasted, ground, mixed with hot water and then filtered out. Okay? So one of the saying related to coffee which I liked and put it in my presentation today. As we discussed the origin of the coffee, we spoke about the role of Kaldi and say Kumar from Yemen, how it was discovered. As far as this word coffee is concerned, C-O-F-F-E is concerned, it might have its origin from Dutch word called kafi, okay, or Turkish word kabe. Okay. In many of the books you will find Arabic word kahwa also being mentioned in it. Yes. But kahwa is totally different, right? It has no direct relation with coffee beans. Yes, as far as the botanical evidences are concerned, the presentation says that many of the claims from different historians and different history books, it is believed that somewhere in Ethiopia it was founded as early as the 3rd century after death of Jesus Christ. As it was invented in Ethiopia, which is Ethiopia is part of Africa. Absolutely right. Ethiopia is one of the South African countries. Though it was originated in South Africa, how it went all the way through. This was not the time when the colonies were formed by either Dutches or Germans or Britishers. So how come it from South Africa it reached to Europe and central part of Asia?
Alexander.
Not really Alexander, but yes, the credit is given. See, we need to understand it was spreaded by the Arabs. The role of Arabs is very important. As far as the coffee from South Africa spreading all across Europe and Central Asia is concerned, the role of Arabs cannot be denied. I'll tell you. Your Egyptians and Romans, they had trade with South Africans. So they traded in terms of jewels, in terms of stones, in terms of leather, in terms of gold, silver, metal with South Africans in exchange to coffee. And these Romans traded with Arabs in terms of spices, clothes, and different other artifacts they traded with. So from Africa, it was taken by Romans or Egyptians into the South American continent. From there, it went into Arabs. Since Arab traded with most of the world, it was taken to different parts of Europe. Clear? South Africa, say it went, it was from South Africa, it went into the, which region? Right. South Africa to Egyptians or Romans. From Romans, this coffee went to Arabs and Arabs to Europe. Now they also there are evidences which says that the people who smuggled goods matlab they took it without paying the tax to the government. Alright, every product that is being produced in a country, it has some amount of tax being levied by the government. Right? Now that tax is the income of the government which they use in doing the development works. So these people, they hide these taxes on those products and they sold it at cheaper price. So the smugglers from Holland and Germans, they were credited to have imported the coffee beans to England. And when the Dutches were spreading their colonies, it reached America. And it became greatly popular in America, especially post the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party brought, yes, it was a revolution which involved tea, but it also brought really a bad name for tea. And the people started looking for a good substitute to tea, and they found it in coffee. So this is how it became popular in America. Now, if you look at the countries which produces, the video presentation said that the country which produces maximum coffee is, which country produces the maximum coffee?
Brazil.
Brazil produces almost 39% of the total produce of the coffee of the entire world. यानी अगर पूरे दुनिया में 100 kg कॉफी प्रोड्यूस होता है, तो which 39 kg is being produced in Brazil itself. Alright, now if you look at this global map, you'll find the countries largely in between. This is the area where there is an equator. ये वाला जो region है, this is your Tropic of Cancer. This is the region which falls under Tropic of Capricorn. So this coffee belt that you look at largely in which zone of the Earth's map? Tropic of Capricorn. Now कौन-कौन सी countries है और कौन-कौन से continents produce करते हैं? Africa, part of Africa, yes, Latin America and Indonesia. The countries, if you talk about जो produce करते coffee, Latin America goes without saying, Caribbean islands, Africa, Arabian Peninsula, and Indonesia. Now, as far as the coffee plants are concerned, coffee belongs to which family? कौन बताएगा? Which genus it belongs to? What is the genus the coffee belongs to? I said that we compared it with Camellia sinensis. Rubiaca. Rubiaca. Which family does it belongs to? Louder. Now there are four prominent. See, if you talk about, there are two prominent varieties of coffee. पूरे दुनिया में 60% coffee belongs to Arabica family. Now, if you see the spelling, this is not incorrect spelling. This is the biological spelling of Arabica plant. It is COFFEA. And generally, the coffee spelling has two E towards end. Yeah, but this is their biological name. Coffee Arabica. The total produce of total global coffee produce, the 60% is coffee Arabica. Around 39% is coffee Robusta. What is the genetic difference between these two? Yes, the reason, the topology, the climatic condition where they are grown in, the amount of rainfall needed. You will find coffee Robusta is grown into the areas which are comparatively more humid, more warmer, which results in greater proportion of caffeine in the coffee. The Robusta has almost 50% more caffeine than Arabica. And what is caffeine? The neuropsychotic drug जो हमें क्या करता है, जो which stimulates our nervous systems, जो हमारे nerve cells हैं उनको stimulate करता है, उनको refresh करता है. Clear? So if you, when you have a cup of coffee, mentally you will feel refreshed. Like गर्मी में जब if you have a ठंडा glass of water, how do you feel? You feel refreshed. You go back home, you pick up a glass of Glucon-D or any mixed drink in home, thanda with a lot of ice. How do you feel? Same thing happens to our nervous system when we have a cup of tea. Clear? As far as the coffee Liberica is from Liberia region, that's why the name. ठीक है? Comparatively lighter. जैसे हमने बात किया Arabica has much smoother and intense flavor, less in caffeine. Robusta comparatively has a very dominating and strong flavor. A greater proportion in Italy, you find them being consuming Robusta coffee. Most of the instant coffees are made with coffee Robusta. So they make coffee using the filter by grinding the beans and then brewing those beans. Then they dehydrate it Dehydrate मतलब water को separate करते, they let the water be evaporated, leaving the extract of coffee. That is how the instant coffee is made. So most of the instant coffees are made from which beans? कौन सा variety से बनता है? Robusta से बनता है. And सबसे ज़्यादा consume होने वाला coffee beans variety is coffee arabica. As far as the Liberica and Excelsa is concerned, उनकी consumption is only left 1% of the total global produce. Sorry for the bad image, but if you look at the Arabica beans, they are comparatively long in size, darker in color, glossier in texture because of the sugar which gets caramelized, so that gives a glaze on it. Robusta comparatively has a lighter color. Clear? And beans, if you see, they will be somehow somewhat smaller than your Arabica coffee beans. We'll also try to understand how these the nature of these coffee beans are different. But before we go in understanding the agriculture process, let's try to understand how the cultivation of coffee beans happens. Alright, there are two prominent methods which are used for sowing these seeds. First is they make vertical holes in the ground. Vertical holes मतलब सीधे holes बनाते हैं, and each holes they feed it with 20 coffee beans. 15 to 20 coffee beans. It is believed that during the process of germination, almost more than 50% coffee beans will get either eaten up by the bacteria in soil, or they will rot, or they will not yield into plant. So only the growth rate is less than 20-25%. So अगर हम लोग 15 to 20 coffee beans डालते हैं, उसमें सिर्फ 4 या 5 स्प्राउटिंग होते हैं. So that is why they make vertical holes in the ground and they feed it with 15 to 20 seeds of coffee beans. And then they add soil around, irrigate it, add fertilizers and wait for the coffee beans to germinate. First is this method. The second method is the nursery method, where the coffee beans are grown in the nursery. And they once they plant these coffee seeds, they allow it to grow up to the height of 1.5 feet to 2 feet, and then they shift the plant into the ground, into the fields. It takes almost 5 to 6 years for a plant to be ready to yield fruits. Berries आने में उसको 5 से 6 साल लगते हैं. And जो berries आती है, that comes almost 9 months later after the blooming of the coffee beans. पहले bloom होता है. Okay? Blooming is the flowering plant which turns into bloom. किस में convert हो जाता है? Fruits में convert हो जाता है. Yes, blooming से flowers होते हैं, flowers से fruits होते हैं. Clear? Now ये जो blooming के almost 9 महीने बाद the coffee beans are ready for harvesting. The coffee beans are largely grown in areas where the temperature is comparatively warmer than tea. In case you have compared it, the temperature, it is almost require semi-tropical climate in between 21 to 23 degree centigrade. On an average, एक plant जो होता है वो 4 से 5 feet तक का होता है. If for the sake of production, they restrict it to 4 to 5 feet. But if you leave it, it might grow up to 10 to 16 feet. Coffee plant. So it will almost turn into a tree. One single coffee plant is believed to be producing 1 kg coffee per cultivation year. Coffee seeds are planted here. This we spoke, blooming, berries. The difference in coffee flavors, if you compare the coffee of Sudan, if you compare the coffee of Ethiopia, they will, even if it's Arabica coffee or even if it's a Robusta coffee, are we there guys?
Yes sir.
We need a cup of coffee. Right, some other day. But in case you feel that I'm moving very fast and you have a question or there is some areas where you are not clear, please raise your hand and ask. Okay? What we were discussing, there are same variety, be it Arabica or Robusta, grown in two different places will have totally different characteristics because of this soil, because of the temperature, because of the water. The water is different. Do you agree?
Yes.
The taste of water here and 15 kilometers from this place will taste totally different. So because of the water, because of the soil, because of the climatic condition, मतलब कितना हीट रहता है पूरे साल, कितना और वो हीट कितने स्पैन के लिए रहता है, दिन कितना गर्म होता है, all these factors determine the nature of the coffee, which means same coffee variety grown in two different regions will have totally different characteristics. होगा या नहीं होगा? Yes?
Yes, sir.
क्यों होगा? क्यों होगा? Again, yes, the soil has a different proportion of minerals. Water same as have a different proportion of minerals, which will result in different rate of nourishment in the plant. The temperature will determine the rate, frequency and the rate of the photosynthesis process. Clear? Yes, no?
Yes.
So all these are the factors which determines the quality of the your coffee beans. Topography is basically the soil, the climate, the water quality, the irrigation methods. Once the beans are ready, the coffee berries are ready, the coffee plant, they produce small berries. But technically they are not called berries. इनको berries हम लोग, if you compare this, can we call coffee as blackberry? Because coffee को भी berry हम लोग बोलते हैं ना. It also has a red fruit which looks like a berry. Can we call coffee being a member of berry family? No. जितने भी berries हैं ना, they are from prunes family. कौन सी family? कौन सी family? और coffee कौन सी family से है? So ना तो ये beans है, ना ये lentil है, ना ही ये berry है. Clear? Right? So the coffee berries, once they are ready for harvesting, they turn red to purplish in color. Yeah? And they require skillful hands to go and pick up those selected coffee berries. उनको हाथ से pluck करते हैं, right? And उसके pluck करने के बाद they are brought into the factory for drying, curing and drying. Now, a good quality coffee, when we say coffee beans like, where is Lavazza? Lavazza, when Illy they did not get it, Davidoff, Sudan coffee, Floggers, right? Now these coffee beans, and if you compare it with Brew, your Nescafe, how are they different? The coffee berries in Lavazza, Illy, Devans, they are hand-picked. They don't just take all the berries together. They only pick up the selective berries from the branches. Yeah, that creates the whole difference. Yes. Largely. Alright, so once the berries are harvested, Acha, did I tell you when the sowing of seed for coffee beans starts? कब करते हैं? कौन बताएगा? When do we sow the seeds of coffee beans? Right before the monsoon, remember? Right before the monsoon. And by the time it is ready for plucking, it will be beginning of summer next year, right? So harvesting is the step where we pluck these berries, right? Once the berries are plucked, it requires curing. Curing is a process. Now berries के ऊपर में आपने notice किया होगा, they have a red color skin, sweet pulpy skin. ऊपर में, they are edible skins, right? So red color क्या? But nobody eats, ठीक है? So red color का skin होता है, that is sweet pulpy skin होता है, with slightly layer inside. Now there are two ways of curing the coffee beans. दो तरीके से करते हैं. एक dry method है, अदर वन इज वेट मेथड. सबसे ज्यादा दुनिया में यूज होने वाला मेथड इज ड्राई मेथड. ड्राई मेथड, दे हार्वेस्ट द कॉफी बीन्स, देन दे स्प्रेड इट ओवर इन अ लार्ज एरिया, पतले लेयर, clear? In very thin layer, they spread it over onto the ground, and they allow the natural heat to dry up the skin of the coffee beans. अगर आप फ्रूट को तोड़ के धूप में रख दोगे तो क्या होगा, उसका स्किन क्या हो जाएगा, ड्राई हो जाएगा ना, मॉइस्चर निकल जाएगा और स्किन will left dry. Now there are people who are given responsibility to turn the berries, then मैं भी अपन 25-30 बार उनको टर्न करना, so that there is a equal degree of drying. Otherwise क्या होगा, ऊपर वाली बेरीज ड्राई हो जाएंगी और नीचे वाली, so उनका रोल है बेरीज को टर्न करते रहना. ठीक है, इसको बोलते हैं ड्राई मेथड ऑफ क्योरिंग. क्लियर? और उसके बाद जो कॉफी बेरीज होती है विद ड्राइड स्किन, दे आर पुट इनटू मिल्स. मिल्स में डालते हैं. मिल्स क्या करते हैं, ऊपर वाले लेयर को तोड़ता है, और वंस इट इज ब्रोकन, there are two tiny beans which comes out. This is what we really work for. Clear? The some coffee berries you'll find contains only one seeds, one bean of coffee. उसको बोलते हैं pea berry. क्या बोलते हैं? क्या बोलते हैं? pea होता है ना मटर, PEA, pea berry. Pea berry कब बोलते हैं हम कॉफी को? When it contains only one single bean. Alright? And in general, how many beans are there in a coffee pot? Two. Clear? So dry method is clear. क्या करते हैं dry method में? इसको पहले dry करते हैं, harvesting के बाद it is dried. Once the skin gets dried, it is put in mills. The mills क्या करता है? Removes the outer layer of the coffee beans by cracking it. इससे क्या होगा, जो beans होते हैं अंदर वो बाहर आ जाते हैं. Clear? The wet method is the pulp is processed, so they have a special peeler kind of container. It revolves, और उसका जो surface होता है ना, that is very rustic, rough. ठीक है, coarsive surface होता है. The berries are put in between, और once the drum revolves, it creates a centrifugal force. Because of the centrifugal, बचपन में कभी खेला वो हाथ को ऐसे फैला के, जब हम रोटेट करते हैं यहाँ पे एक फोर्स महसूस होता है. That is the centrifugal force. So that revolving drum which has a coarser surface, उसका जो surface area है coarser है, ठीक है, rough है. बेरीज को उसके अंदर डाल के जब उसको रिवॉल्व किया जाता है, क्या होता है, बेरीज उससे घिसती है, फ्रिक्शन होता है, और ऊपर का जो लेयर होता है बेरीज का वो निकल जाता है ना. वो निकलने के बाद क्या होता है, बेरीज का स्लाइमी जो म्यूसिलेज है दैट कम्स आउट, एक ग्लूई सब्सटेंस निकलता है उससे. बड़ा कभी भिंडी तुमने देखा है काटने करने के बाद कैसा स्लाइमी जैसा हो जाता है ना, बिल्कुल वैसा ही होता है इसके साथ भी. वेट मेथड में फिर उसको क्या करते हैं, कॉफी बीन्स को काफ़ी देर पानी के अंदर में भिगो के रख दिया जाता है, काफ़ी देर, ताकि ये जो स्लाइमी लेयर है कॉफी बीन्स का वो वॉश आउट हो जाए, वो निकल जाए. उसके बाद फिर उसको ड्राई करते हैं एंड देन ग्राइंड करते हैं, कॉफी बीन्स को निकालते हैं. क्लियर? यहाँ तक क्लियर है? एनी कंफ्यूजन? पक्का? व्हाट वाज द फर्स्ट स्टेप इन कॉफी मेकिंग? सबसे पहला मेथड क्या था? हार्वेस्टिंग. सबसे पहले क्या था? हार्वेस्टिंग. हार्वेस्टिंग के बाद क्योरिंग. कितने तरीके से क्योरिंग होता है? ड्राई एंड वेट. बोथ मेथड्स यू अंडरस्टूड? एनी कंफ्यूजन? पानी सबसे ज्यादा किस में यूज होता है? पानी कौन सा मेथड में यूज होता है? गुड. क्यों यूज करते हैं वाटर? Slime, yes, slimy mucilage. Again, it depends on the heat. It varies. Couple of days, almost 3 से 4 दिन सन ड्राई. ठीक है, और ये सन ड्राई करते कब, कौन सी जगह पे? जहाँ पे हवा में मॉइस्चर हो. अदरवाइज क्या होगा, वो इतना ड्राई हो जाएगा कि इट विल क्रम्बल. क्लियर? क्योरिंग के बाद रोस्टिंग. अच्छा, यहाँ पे मोस्ट ऑफ द कॉफी दैट यू सी आर कॉफी बीन्स एक्सेप्ट द ब्रू एंड नेस्कैफे. दे आर इंस्टेंट कॉफी ब्रांड्स. रोबस्टा में बहुत डोमिनेंट फ्लेवर, मतलब रोबस्टा if you Nescafe has a variety called Gold that they use. They are beans. Alright. So next step is roasting. Sorry. Next. Roasting is a process. Now the coffee beans which after processing they are brownish, light brown in color. Yeah? What in color? Light brown. The color of jute, jute ka color hai. So it is like that. It is very light brown in color. Now the coffee beans are taken for roasting. So they have roasters with a perforated platforms. Perforated platforms क्या होते हैं? जिनमें holes हो, clear? और they have a revolving blade. The revolving blade क्या करता है? Beans को churn करता रहता है. The video I showed that was shown there. Clear? That is a roaster. So heat को नीचे से impart करते हैं और roaster वो जो blade है वो क्या करता है? Revolving blade जो है that ensures equal degree of roasting in the coffee beans. So when the coffee beans are roasted, the temperature of coffee, यानी coffee bean के अंदर का temperature determines the color profile and the flavor profile that you will get from the coffee. Clear? If the inner core temperature of coffee bean is 193 degree, कितना है? 193 degree Fahrenheit. So in that case, the flavor of the coffee will be much lighter. Anything in between 200 to 220 degree is going to be dark to darkest in color. Clear? And it will have more smoky flavor. Clear? जो sugar होता है वो caramelize हो जाता है. Sugar जो होता है caramelize हो जाएगा. And when once the sugar caramelizes, it gives off that burning smell. Clear? So roasting. What is the temperature of coffee beans? 190 to 220 degree. Grinding. Now the coffee beans once roasted, they are ground. उनको क्या करते हैं? उनको grind किया जाता है मशीन के अंदर डाल के, मिल्क के अंदर. And they are grind to coarser consistency. आपने दलिया देखे? Seen porridge? Up to that consistency और उससे थोड़ा सा बारीक, थोड़ा सा फाइनर उसको ग्राइंड किया जाता है. Blending. Now blending is, listen, just try and understand. Let's say you have got 100 kgs of coffee beans to be roasted. 100 kgs of coffee beans to be roasted. Do you think when you are roasting manually or even mechanically, the degree of roasting will be same throughout? Yes, no. Even machine से जब कर रहे हैं, practically not possible. Some beans will be roasted greatly than other coffee beans. So what do? After grinding, they blend all the coffee beans together, so that there is a uniformity in flavor. चाहे आप पहला कप पी रहे हो, चाहे आप 100वां कप पी रहे हो, the flavor remains the same. So there comes the role of blending. Brewing is the process again of making coffee. Okay, we'll be talking about this as we go in detail. The plantation of coffee beans. Do you notice with the coffee plants, they have got planted different other plants in between? दिखाई दे रहा है? ऐसा क्यों किया है? They have got banana plants and
So wind के लिए, wind.
और in that case हाँ, wind could be wind होता तो बेटा फिर plants like palm and coconut or betel nut would have been suitable.
Sir, excess water absorption or
water को excess water को absorb करने के लिए and अगर in case there are different plants, what do? They have an ability to inject nitrogen into the soil. Or nitrogen is very critical for the rate of photosynthesis. Clear? If you remember 10th when you were studying photosynthesis process, the nitrogen, how important it is, it is very critical component. For soil, nitrogen सीधे absorb नहीं करता है. They uses the stems, roots of the plant to absorb the nitrogen in nitrate form. Yeah, absolutely. Clear? So therefore we require different plants to be harvested in between to ensure optimal level of nitrates in the soil. We spoken about these processes. Now if you see, the lady is hand picking the ripened berries. Clear? Now this will be the difference. This is what I said. A good company will never compromise with the while harvesting the coffee beans. They will only use the beans which has been ripened to a specific degree. Curing, we spoke about the wet curing, dry curing, tilting. Now they are sorting. मैंने इसके बारे में बताया नहीं. Sorting or grading is a process where they segregate the coffee beans based on their sizes, based on their shapes. अच्छा, decaffeinating. Alright. The caffeine is one component you'll find many people are allergic to. Right? In some cases people have we have an immune system, right? And the way immune system reacts to different commodities and different elements is different for everyone. The way my immune system will react to something will be totally different than your immune system. Now what happens in some cases, their immune systems are highly sensitive to certain component. So they produce a kind of a protein called immunoglobulin. 10वीं में पढ़ा था immunoglobulin करके, ठीक है? Immunoglobulin is substance जो बॉडी प्रोड्यूस करता है जब उसे लगता है कि यार ये जो चीज़ हमारे शरीर में प्रोड्यूस हो रही है ना, इट माइट हार्म हमारे बॉडी को, तब एक प्रिजर्व क्या बोलते हैं, एक एंटी बॉडी काइंड ऑफ प्रोटीन it produces, immunoglobulin जिसको बोलते हैं. Now this immunoglobulin will fight with the allergen which has entered the body, right? So many people are found to be allergic to caffeine. So in that case, to still make coffee available for them to use it, the caffeine is removed from the coffee. There are two prominent ways of removing the caffeine from the coffee beans. ये आपको कभी समझ में नहीं आएगा if not today. मैं बहुत सिंप्लीफाई करके आपको समझाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ. पहला is a steaming method. They steam the coffee beans और ये steaming किया जाता है roasting से पहले. इसके पहले so decaf बनाने के लिए पहला प्रोसेस क्या होगा? सबसे पहले harvesting, curing, steaming, then roasting. Now this steaming will ensure, वो क्या करता है, स्टीमिंग क्या करता है, कैफीन जो होता है ना लाइट कंपोनेंट होता है, और ये कैफीन कहाँ पर होता है, एंडोस्पर्म एरिया ऑफ द कॉफी बीन्स के एंडोस्पर्म एरिया में होता है. जब उसको स्टीम किया जाता है, बिकॉज ऑफ द स्टीम द कॉफी बीन्स, द कैफीन राइजेस अप एंड कम्स विद द आउटर पार्ट ऑफ द कॉफी बीन्स, ऊपर की तरफ आ जाता है. और जब हम मिलिंग करते हैं, जब हम उसको मिल करते हैं, ऊपर का पार्ट हट जाता है एंड द कैफीन गेट्स रिमूव्ड. So this is the steaming method. The other one is they use solvents. They use chemical solvents. क्या use करते हैं? Chemical solvent. पहला method क्या use किया था? Decaffeination, steaming. दूसरा method के लिए they use chemical solvent. कौन सा chemical solvent? I would want everybody to repeat after me. Ethyl acetate. 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 और दूसरा जो है वो है डाइक्लोरोमेथेन. Ethyl acetate. क्या यूज करते हैं? डाइक्लोरोमेथेन. क्लियर? डाइक्लोरोमेथेन. दूसरे में क्या अभी आ रहा है? कितनी बार वॉशरूम जाते हैं? रूम को वॉश तो नहीं करना है। Clear? समझ में आ गया? So what do? They soak coffee beans with these chemical solvents. These chemical solvents dissolves the caffeine within themselves. Now since they are chemical solvents, coffee beans को क्या करना पड़ेगा? बढ़िया से वॉश करना पड़ेगा। वॉश नहीं करना पड़ेगा, काफी अच्छे से तरीके से वॉश करना पड़ेगा। केमिकल सॉल्वेंट्स के अंदर में कॉफी बीन्स को डाल के सोक कर दिया। Now what happens? These chemical solvents they dilute the caffeines within themselves. उसके बाद chemical solvents को सेपरेट करने के लिए कॉफी बीन्स को बढ़िया से वॉश किया जाता है। उसके बाद क्या करेंगे फिर? यानी क्या प्रोसेस होगा? पहले क्या करेंगे? हार्वेस्ट, क्यूरिंग, केमिकल सॉल्वेंट प्रोसेस या स्टीलिंग प्रोसेस और रोस्टिंग। रोस्टिंग के बाद ग्राइंडिंग, ब्लेंडिंग। ग्राइंडिंग क्यों करते हैं? कॉफी का फ्लेवर कहाँ पे? कॉफी के अंदर। जब तक उसको तोड़ेंगे नहीं वो फ्लेवर बाहर कैसे आएगा? सो ग्राइंडिंग, क्लियर। एंड ब्लेंडिंग क्यों करते हैं? यूनिफॉर्मिटी इन फ्लेवर, सो दैट देयर इज अ यूनिफॉर्मिटी इन फ्लेवर। ऑलराइट, ठीक है। उसके बाद पैकेजिंग के बाद आउट, ठीक है।
बेस मेथड फॉर स्टीमिंग और
सॉल्ट, केमिकल सॉल्ट, क्लियर। As far as the processing is concerned, coffee beans के हमने कितने टाइप्स डिस्कस किए थे? Four. Arabica, Robusta, Arabica, Espresso. Clear? As far as the process is concerned, process of making coffee is concerned, इनको 4 हिस्सों में डिवाइड किया गया है। Instant coffee. How do we make instant coffee? We make filter coffee. Filter coffee बनाया, यानी कॉफी बीन्स रोस्ट किया, ग्राइंड किया, पानी में उसको ब्रू किया। Once we have a coffee, we dehydrate it. Dehydrate मतलब evaporation से water को separate किया, leaving the coffee particles. Instant coffee, clear? This is how your Nescafe or brew sachets are made. Decaffeinated coffee. How do we decaffeinate? Flavored coffee. There are coffees which are flavored with fruits. Alright? Now it could be because of, as मैंने बताया था ना, tea leaves are highly susceptible to flavors.
Yes.
Same as coffee beans. So you can flavor it with cocoa. You can flavor it with grass or fruit. Certain fruits. Bison grasses. ठीक है, lemon grasses. ठीक है. Organic coffee क्या होता है? Organic क्या होता है? Anything organic is what? Which is made, which is cultivated without using chemicals. Fertilizers use होते हैं वहाँ पे, chemicals use नहीं होते। क्या use नहीं होता? क्या use नहीं होता? अब सर पानी पी गया। अब सर Now let's talk about Alright, now to make coffee, everyone, I know, I can understand, you are getting impatient to taste the coffee, but we are yet to finish. To make the coffee, The one we make it in our home. What do we do? We would bring the sachets from the market, we boil the water, we put the coffee powder in the boiling hot water, mix it nicely, and the coffee is ready. If needed, we add milk, we add sugar. That's the way we make it. But that is not the real way of making coffee. Right? To make a coffee, to make a good cup of coffee, okay, we'll have a separate session once the first years leave. Okay, I just need a button. And I'm serious. The coffee beans, after it is ground, it requires a special tools to make it, right? उनमें से एक आता है जो बहुत commonly use होता है, once you go to hotel that you'll get to see is either you'll see machines, बड़े machines होते हैं from where they dispense it. Clear? Yes or no? वहाँ पे क्या use होता है? वहाँ पे coffee beans use होते हैं. क्या use होता है? क्या use होता है उनमें? Coffee beans use होते हैं. हमेशा की ऐसा भी नहीं. Alright, so there's a coffee machine and it has different buttons dedicated for different type of coffee. You press one particular button, you get a one particular style of coffee. Yeah, likewise. Machine is configured in that way. Right? But manually, how do we make it? To make coffee manually, तो एक सबसे पहले कॉमन चीज़ जो जरूरत होती है उसको बोलते हैं हम लोग कॉफ़ी मेकर की जरूरत होती है, राइट? और I'll show you some of them. सर इंटरनेट है ना? Yes. Can you see this one?
Yes.
Can you see this one?
Yes, sir.
Now this is called French press. क्या बोलते हैं इसको? क्या बोलते हैं? क्या बोलते हैं? French press. There is a very famous brand called Bodum. It's a Swiss brand called Bodum. B-O-D-U-M. What is the name of the brand? Bodum. Now this container is added with. This is the plunger. Plunger, इसको plunger भी बोलता है. Plunger you see the one which is a very common tool used in washrooms for cleaning and रबड़ का ट्यूब होता है और पीछे स्टेम होता है. Clear? So the filter acts as a plunger. So symbolically it is also referred as plunger. So plunger is taken out, the filter is removed, the jar is filled with hot water, and then we add coffee beans. कितना coffee beans add करेंगे per cup? How much tea is needed per cup? Per cup, how much tea is needed? Similarly, to make a good cup of coffee, not in that or mitti ka, sorry, your paper cups. I'm talking about the real cups. You need 7 grams of coffee. Kitna? 7 grams. Ideally, if you are making 7 grams. Kitna? 7 grams. Kitna? 7 grams of coffee for making 1 cup of coffee. And how many grams of tea for a cup of tea? 2 to 3 grams. Clear? समझ में आ गया? Yes, sir. So jar is filled with hot water, and as per the required number of cups, there we add the number of spoons of coffee powder into the jar, and then we nicely mix it with spoon, not cooking over flame. We get a boiling hot water, we heat the pot, add warm water, per cup के हिसाब से we add the ground coffee beans, and then we let it soak for 3 to 4 minutes. कितने मिनट के लिए छोड़ते हैं? And then we gradually press the filter down. ठीक है? The filter, when it plunges down, it collects all the ground coffee beans and accumulate it at the bottom. और नीचे ले जाके इकट्ठा कर देते हैं. और ऊपर में clear coffee आ जाता है. Clear? This is what is called as filter coffee. इसको बोलते हैं filter. इसको बोलते हैं. इसको बोलते हैं. This is filter coffee. And what is the equipment that we use? French press or the other one you see is called percolator. Percolator में यहाँ पे ये वाला जो हिस्सा देख रहे हो ना, ये सारा पानी होता है और कॉफी बीन्स ऊपर में डाले जाते हैं. कॉफी बीन्स ऊपर में डाले जाते हैं और पानी को हीट किया जाता है. ये जब is put over the flame, When the water boils, it goes up above the filter which is there inside, जिसको ऊपर में coffee beans रखे हुए, और coffee beans के साथ वो percolate करता है, clear? And after 3 to 4 minutes when you pour it, you'll have a dark black coffee. All right? This is how the filter coffee is also made in percolators. Percolators अभी आपको देखने को नहीं मिलेंगे. Largely, you'll get to see the plungers or French press. Let me see if I can show you.
Sir,
Slightly percolator coffee will be slightly bitter, halka bitter. क्योंकि you are putting the flavor on flame, it concentrates on bitterness थोड़ा सा बढ़ जाता है.
sir,
हाँ बेटा.
ये भी एक प्लंजर है, वो फिल्टर परफोरेटर है क्या सर? ये परफोरेटर
नहीं तो in the board.
अच्छा ये शाइन की क्रिएशन है. दिस इज कॉल्ड साउथ इंडियन फिल्टर कॉफी मेकर. साउथ इंडियन फिल्टर कॉफी मेकर. गुड. रुक जा, इसको भी एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ. दिस इज ड्रिप कॉफी मेकर. कैन यू सी दिस? ये दिखाई दे रहा है आपको? Can you see this image? Now the jar in bottom is where the coffee gets collected. ऊपर वाला जो conical part है is where laid with filter paper उसमें डालते हैं and coffee powder is kept over it. And धीरे धीरे पहले कॉफी गर्म पानी डाला जाता है, hot water is poured over and allow the coffee bean to macerate for couple of minutes. उसके बाद फिर gradually जैसे कल हम लोग बना रहे हैं, exactly same way the coffee is made. Now this equipment is called drip coffee maker and the coffee you will make it will be called as drip coffee. Again it is a kind of a filter coffee. ये आपको पहले होटल्स में देखने को मिलते थे, अभी भी बहुत जगह पे मिलेंगे आपको देखने को. विशाल, I'll show you another one. Do you see this now? कौन बताएगा ये क्या है? सेकेंड ईयर्स क्या ये? This is not percolation. But it does follow the percolation method. समझ सही बोला. It also follows the percolation method, but there is a name. क्या नाम है इसका? Siphon or? This is also called as Kona coffee maker. Siphon or Kona coffee maker. Now, इधर देखो इसको कैसे करते हैं. Now this is a place where there is a lamp. Now this is a methane or propane lamp. ठीक है, उसको जलाते हैं. ये वाला कंटेनर है, बोल है जिसके अंदर में तुम्हारा गर्म पानी डालता है. The coffee comes in. When the water is heated, it boils, turns into vapor, rises up, goes into this, percolates with the coffee beans, and using this funnel, it strains out back into the bottom container. So यहाँ से पानी देखना धीरे 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 ऊपर राइज करेगा, यहाँ से वाटर ऊपर जाता जाएगा और इधर से कॉफी नीचे आता रहेगा. ठीक है. Now this is how the Kona coffee is made. Clear?
Yes, sir.
क्या बोलते हैं इसको? What is this? Siphon or? Siphon or? C-O-N-A, Kona coffee maker. Alright, now to make things ensure that milk is boiling hot. अभी ये ठंडा है. मुझे गरम करके लगाओ सर ठंडा हो जाएगा. Alright, for making the coffee. So we learned अभी तक कौन सा कॉफी बनाना सीखा हमने? फिल्टर कॉफी, कोना कॉफी, ड्रिप कॉफी, परकलेटेड कॉफी. ये जो प्रोसेस आप देख रहे हो ना, ये सेम एज दिस इज सेम एज द परकलेटर, राइट? बट इसमें कंपार्टमेंट्स अलग होते हैं. दिस इज हॉट वाटर. ये वाला जो ऊपर वाला एरिया है, इसके अंदर में तुम्हारा कॉफी पाउडर डाला जाता है और इसको फ्लेम के ऊपर रख देते हैं. वाटर बॉइल्स करता है, राइज करता है, the steam macerates with coffee and then it falls back into this container. जब आप इसको pour करोगे, कॉफी अलग हो जाएगा फिल्टर के थ्रू and you will get a clear coffee. This is how the South Indian coffee is made. इसको South Indian coffee maker भी बोलते हैं. Online you can look for it. Alright, so we learn to make filter coffee, we learn to make drip coffee, we learn to make cola coffee. Alright, now we'll try to understand the coffees which are made using machines. You cannot really make it with hand, right? Agar if somebody says that they can make espresso using hand, but trust me, it will not be the same in terms of the quality. Even if I put 40 grams of coffee powder with hot water, 60 ml hot water, and nicely dilute it, it cannot be called as espresso. Or 7 grams of coffee to produce 60 ml of coffee, we cannot call it as espresso. Clear? क्यों नहीं होगा? The espresso which we get from the machine, उसके ऊपर मैंने एक माइक्रोफोम होता है. Notice क्या white color का creamy layer होता है. It can never be made using manual hands. Once you see, जब आप instant coffee बनाती हो ना, उसके ऊपर में एक हल्का माइक्रोफोम आता है. Not because of you being very efficient in mixing. It is not possible to create that fine bubbles by beating the air. This machine can do it. So there are certain coffees which only machines can produce. उसमें सबसे पहला जो होता है वो है espresso. कौन सा है? Espresso नहीं बोलते, espresso. लिखते हैं espresso, बोलते हैं espresso. अमान सीधा है. ठीक है? क्या बोलते हैं? Espresso. और espresso कैसे बनाते हैं? Espresso is a strong bitter coffee. कैसा कॉफी है? To make espresso, we need 60 ml of water. कितना? 60 ml. यानी एक लार्ज विस्की जितना. सिर्फ उतना और इतनी ये बहुत छोटा क्वांटिटी है ना. So that requires ना small cup. डमी तासे का. Absolutely correct. डमी तासे का. Alright. और 7 grams of coffee powder the machine uses in a container. It injects steam. मशीन क्या करता है? क्या इंजेक्ट करता है? कहाँ इंजेक्ट करता है? ग्राउंड कॉफी बीन्स में या होल कॉफी बीन्स में? ग्राउंड कॉफी बीन्स में. मशीन क्या करता है? कितने कॉफी, कितनी क्वांटिटी? स्टीम इंजेक्ट करता है एंड लेट इट सोक फॉर कपल ऑफ सेकंड्स. उसके बाद फिर उसके अंदर फोर्स के साथ स्टीम इंजेक्ट करता है व्हिच हैज मोर वाटर वेपर्स. ये वाटर वेपर्स क्या करते हैं? कॉफी के फ्लेवर को रिंस आउट करते हैं और ये जो फोर्स होता है ना, इट क्रिएट्स दैट माइक्रोफोम ओवर द कप. ये जो फोर्स के साथ जो स्टीम को इंजेक्ट करता है, दैट क्रिएट्स दैट द फाइन लेयर ऑफ स्किन ओवर द कप. क्लियर? एंड दैट वी गेट इज, उसको बोलेंगे एक्सप्रेसो. सो एक्सप्रेसो इज 7 grams of coffee powder. Coffee powder कौन सा? Ground coffee beans. Clear? And 60 पर अगर हम 7 grams की जगह 14 grams कॉफी यूज करें, कितना? 7 grams की जगह क्या यूज करें? 7 ग्राम्स की जगह 7 ग्राम्स की जगह 14 ग्राम्स। अब हम जब 14 ग्राम्स कॉफी यूज करते हैं वॉइस, जब हम 14 ग्राम्स कॉफी यूज करते हैं टू प्रोड्यूस 60 ml कॉफी से एक्सप्रेसो कितना था, कॉफी कितना था, कॉफी कितना था 7 ग्राम्स, वाटर कितना था, यहाँ पे कितना यूज किया कॉफी 14 ग्राम्स, वाटर कितना है, जो कॉफी बन जाएगा सेम मेथड, the steam will be injected in 14 grams of coffee, it will allow to settle it down, उसके बाद more water vapors, less steam will be injected to rinse out the ground coffee beans, that will give you double espresso, जिसको हम लोग ristretto भी बोलते हैं, क्या बोलते हैं, ristretto is the right word, double espresso वो लोग बोलते हैं जिन्हें ristretto बोलते हैं, इसको doppio भी बोलते हैं, क्या बोलते हैं, doppio और ristretto. What is the difference between espresso and your ristretto? Absolutely correct. 7 grams coffee, steamed, rinsed out, espresso. 14 grams of coffee, 60 ml of water. It gives you ristretto. Clear? Now this espresso, now this is the base for most of the coffee in machine. The machine coffee that we get, espresso is the base for most of the coffee. Clear? The video that we saw today, it spoke about the Americans when they were fighting the First World War in Italy, and they fell homesick. Italians जो कॉफी पीते हैं, we are बहुत stronger, clear? तो उन्हें घर की याद आने लगी और वो बहुत कॉफी मिस करते थे, उनके पास भी कॉफी खत्म हो गया था. So when they used to go to these bars, they asked people for coffees, and they realized that Italian coffees are much stronger in flavor. So they requested them to add water. So Italian understood कि यार Americans now they are not liking our flavor. So they started installing steamers in their bar, and whenever they have had Americans coming to their bar asking for a cup of tea, they by default they used to mix espresso with water, hot water डाल देते थे उसके अंदर में. यानी espresso कितना होगा कप के अंदर में 60 ml और बाकी का 120 ml कितना होगा वाटर. ठीक है, उसको उन्होंने उसका नाम ही कर दिया अमेरिकानो. क्या बना दिया नाम? अमेरिकानो इज एक्सप्रेसो प्लस espresso plus good. Clear? So that was espresso. Your macchiato is your espresso. Again espresso macchiato कभी भी तुमको कप मिलेगा ना, तो वो कप in a regular cup वो हाफ कप ही रहेगा. It is just the coffee espresso topped with milk foam. मिल्क फोम क्या होता है? द फ्रॉथ. मिल्क के अंदर में क्या है? प्रोटीन है, फैट है, और जब उसके अंदर स्टीम इंजेक्ट करते हैं तो स्टीम में क्या है? क्या जा रहा है स्टीम में? एयर जा रहा है. और एयर क्या होता है? जब उसको बारी बारी से आप उसमें फोर्सफुली बार बार उसके अंदर में आप इंजेक्ट करो तो क्या होता है? मिल्क राइज करता. प्रोटीन क्या होता है? प्रोटीन एक नेटवर्क बनाता है एंड एयर गेट्स ट्रैप्ड इन, जिसकी वजह से मिल्क राइज कर जाता है. मिल्क का भी कभी शेक बनाया आपने घर में? देखा मिल्क का ऊपर में फ्रॉथ जैसा आ जाता है. वो फ्रॉथ कहाँ से आता है? मिल्क के अंदर में जो फैट है, प्रोटीन है, वो एयर को ट्रैप करता है, जिसकी वजह से मिल्क का सरफेस एरिया बढ़ जाता है. क्लियर? सो वो मिल्क फोम का लेयर होता है, दैट विल बी कॉल्ड एज माकियातो. क्या बोलते हैं? क्या बोलेंगे? माकियातो. कैफे लाते हैं यू ऐड. अच्छा एक चीज समझने की कोशिश करो. यू टेक कप, 2 कप लिया, एक के अंदर में एक्सप्रेसो डाला, ऊपर में मिल्क डाला, ठीक है, और सबसे ऊपर में मिल्क फोम डाला. ये हो गया तुम्हारा कैपुचिनो. क्या हो गया? एक्सप्रेसो, मिल्क, ऐड स्टीम मिल्क एंड ऊपर से फ्रॉथी मिल्क. ठीक है, ये हो गया तुम्हारा कैपुचिनो. दूसरा वाला कप के अंदर में पहले हमने मिल्क डाला, फिर ऊपर हमने एक्सप्रेसो डाला. क्लियर? ये हो गया कैफे लाते. इसको क्या बोलते हैं? कैफे लाते. इसको कैफे ओले भी बोलते हैं. फ्लैट वाइट इज योर एक्सप्रेसो एंड योर हॉट मिल्क. ठीक है. कैफे मोका ग्लास लो. जनरली कैफे मोका मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस यू विल सी अ ग्लास कप. सिर्फ यू विल सी अ ग्लास कप और ग्लास मग बीइंग यूज्ड फॉर कैफे मोका के लिए. So they will take the glass mug, they'll add chocolate syrup, उसको रोल करते हैं, रोल करेंगे ना एक चॉकलेट कोटिंग हो जाएगी पूरे ग्लास के अंदर, ठीक है। और दे माइट यूज और फ्रॉथर यूज करते हैं, चॉकलेट में डिप करके फ्रॉथर प्ले कर देंगे तो उससे स्प्रिंकल्स या वायर जैसा नेटवर्क क्रिएट हो जाता है, ठीक है। फिर उसके अंदर डालेंगे एक्सप्रेसो, फिर डालेंगे उसके अंदर में योर स्टीम मिल्क और ऊपर से मिल्क फोम, ठीक है। दैट इज योर कैफे मोका। अमेरिकानो मैंने बता दिया, लॉन्ग ब्लैक और अमेरिकानो में एक ही डिफरेंस है, ये अमेरिकानो से भी ज़्यादा पानी होता है और लॉन्ग ब्लैक के लिए वी नीड अ टॉल कप, बड़ा कप चाहिए, ठीक है। इट विल हैव मोर वाटर। गैलो इज एक्सप्रेसो एंड मिल्क फोम। एक्सप्रेसो लिया और कप को ऊपर तक किससे फिल कर दिया? मिल्क फोम से। सो दे फिल अप द मिल्क इन अ क्रीमर, थोड़ा सा मिल्क लेते क्रीमर के अंदर में और उसको स्टीम करते तब तक जब तक ये पूरा का पूरा द क्रीमर फिल्स अप ना हो जाए। उसके बाद धीरे धीरे स्पून से उसमें गिरा देते। दैट इज योर गैलो। कैफे कौन पाना है इज योर एक्सप्रेसो विद व्हिप्ड क्रीम। अगेन ये दिस विल आल्सो गो इन अ टॉल कप। देखा हैंडल वाले ग्लास कप्स आते हैं ना, जैसे कैपुचिनो कप्स वुड बी गुड। ये दिस वन लार्जली गोज इन अ ग्लास कप्स, ठीक है, बड़े कप्स में जाते हैं। कैफे वेना इज सेम एज योर कौन पाना, बट द डिफरेंस इज इसके अंदर में डबल शॉट एक्सप्रेसो बना, एक्सप्रेसो का डबल शॉट। कैफे मिलान इज योर एक्सप्रेसो हॉट वाटर एंड ऊपर से व्हिप्ड क्रीम, और हॉट वाटर में थोड़ा सा डालें, नॉट लाइक अमेरिकानो में जितना डाला उतना नहीं। एक्सप्रेसो को थोड़ा सा पतला करने के लिए, हल्का सा लाइट करने के लिए इट इज एडेड। ये all these coffees that you see requires the involvement of either black and white, WMF, Chimbali. Manually to make these coffees are extremely challenging. ऐसा नहीं कि we cannot make it espresso, we can make it with hand. But somebody, अच्छा एक बात बताओ, how many of you like eating fish? Can you tell me the difference between by eating? Can you tell me the difference whether it's a raw or baked? Whole effect same as the coffee. If you make espresso using hands and you make another espresso, serve it in different cup using machine, anyone can tell you. If they are a coffee drinker, they can jolly well tell you the difference. Okay? There are some varieties of coffees which are not mentioned here. For example, Dalgona, that will be doing it now, and Frappe also. Cafe Affogato जो है, it's a alternative layer. Hotels के अंदर में, if you go or you go to any of the bar, coffee bar, and you order a affogato, they will give you espresso, and they will put couple of scoops of ice cream. या पहले ice cream डालेंगे या ऊपर से pour कर देंगे espresso को, sweet. हाँ, affogato is a coffee. Affogato comes in both the category यार, उसको coffee भी मानते हैं, उसको Italian dessert भी मानते हैं. Clear? So what they will do, they will put couple of dollops of vanilla ice cream और ऊपर से कॉफी डाल दिया, या पहले नीचे एक्सप्रेसो डाला ऊपर से कॉफी डाल दिया. The best way to make it is put it into a alternate layer. एक्सप्रेसो लो, पहले उसके अंदर शुगर डाल के इसको स्वीट कर लो. Clear? Then put a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Put a scoop of vanilla ice cream and then pour little espresso. For another scoop of vanilla ice cream, then pour little espresso. For another scoop of vanilla ice cream. And then your final pour of espresso. ऊपर से थोड़ा सा कॉफी पाउडर डालो. Now this is what is called as affogato. क्या बोलते हैं? Affogato. क्या बोलते हैं? Affogato. Alright.
tenemos double espresso.
Then we have
What is called double espresso? Another name.
double expression. See, if you are saying doppio, if you are saying ristretto, it's 14 grams of coffee means 14 grams, 60 ml of coffee. But you say double espresso means double shots of espresso. Espresso, yani total 120 ml of espresso. Right. So what we'll be doing, we'll be making a Dalgona coffee. Yeah, let's start with cafe frappe. ये hot है. कोल्ड क्यों चाहिए? Swanto sir. This is frappe, right? The frappe is not same as frappe means cold in French, right? People are mistaken generally they, with frappe and cold coffee being the same, but it's not. These two are two different coffees. Right? Frappes are coffee without milk kind of thing. It is iced and it is different from iced coffee. Alright? क्यों कैसे होता मैं बता दूँ? You make black coffee. Black coffee बनाओ. You make black coffee. You make fill up the glass with the ice, right? And just pour the sugared instant coffee. That is called as iced coffee. That is not frappe. So that is just the ice and sugared black coffee. Sugared ice and sugared black coffee. Ice and so black coffee बनाया, चीनी मिक्स किया, ग्लास में आइस डाला, फिल किया और ब्लैक कॉफी पोर कर दिया. That's it. Same as iced tea. समझ में आ गया? Now the one we are making now, what we have done, अच्छा by the way we haven't had a frother, उसकी जगह हम लोग whisker use कर रहे हैं. So you need to understand to make, be it a dalgona, to make a Brazilian coffee or to make frappe, it's always advisable to you have a frother. Clear? Now difference क्या है? The blades are sharper here. The whisker के जो blade होते हैं sharp होते हैं. That is why it takes long time. ठीक है? Aerations में काफी समय लगता है. The frother has a wide mucilage होता है with the edge, so it gives larger surface area for aeration. So मैंने क्या किया? I created a cream of coffee, iced water and sugar. इसके अंदर में coffee, iced water and sugar. Water लेने गई थी, ना? बार-बार बोलना पड़ता है. This is what you see is frappe. Right?
Yes, sir.
So iced coffee, frappe and cold coffee are same. Are they same or different? कैसे? कैसे different है? Percentage of
water and sugar.
percentage of water and coffee powder. What is the difference between somebody who is answering the question will get to taste this?
सर क्वेश्चन क्या है?
Question है, what is the difference between पहले iced coffee, black coffee and frappes? Are they same?
No sir.
क्यों? What is the difference? Alright, जो भी आंसर देगा उसे डालगोना मिलेगा टेस्ट करने के लिए।
नहीं अच्छा हुआ
Ice coffee with brewing
Alright, the reason why we are using old-fashioned glasses for make so that you can see how these coffees look, right? Now you can make it. So you can make it into you can cream the coffee in a different glass and. Two ways you can make it. एक तो तुम अच्छा ये milk जो है ना always advisable to use a full cream milk which has been well stemmed thickened milk चाहिए ध्यान रखना मैं जो use कर रहा हूँ it is दो half cream milk but thickened नहीं है मैं दोनों तरीके से दिखा रहा हूँ एक मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ where I'm having a base of milk और ऊपर से मैं डालगोना डालूंगा और दूसरे में मैंने क्या किया
coffee
guest, you can have the cream out on top and the guest can make it. The other one will be just ये बिस्किट लगा styles of dalgona that I made you. One is, I need a tissue here. Tissue रखा है? Right. So क्या क्या difference था iced coffee में, frappe में and cold coffee में? We make black coffee, add sugar, black coffee बनाया, hot water, coffee, mix किया, sugar डाला, लास्ट में आइस डाला, ऊपर से कॉफी पोर कर दी, without any fork, without any microphone, वो क्या बन जाएगा? क्या बन जाएगा? गुड। दूसरा कप लिया, उसके अंदर ठंडा पानी डाला, शुगर डाला, आइस ये कॉफी पाउडर डाला, उसको नाइसली फ्रॉथ किया। क्या किया? क्रीम किया उसको। क्लियर? और उसके बाद उसको पोर किया आइस के बेड पे। वो बन जाएगा तुम्हारा फ्रापे। वो क्या बन गया? मिल्क डाला था इसमें फ्रापे में? नहीं। कोल्ड कॉफी में कॉफी डिकॉक्शन बनाया, पानी गर्म किया, कॉफी बना लिया, ठीक है? या यू कैन ब्लेंड इट विद मिल्क। मिल्क में कॉफी डाला, शुगर डाला, उसको बढ़िया सा ब्लेंड किया, ठीक है? यू कैन ऐड कॉफी आइसक्रीम अगर घर में, ठीक है? अगर कॉफी आइसक्रीम नहीं है, यू ऑल्सो कैन ऐड, अगर आपको रिच क्रीमी फ्लेवर अच्छा लगता है, यू कैन ऐड वनीला आइसक्रीम और चॉकलेट आइसक्रीम, बट चॉकलेट विल डोमिनेट द फ्लेवर ऑफ कॉफी, ठीक है? इट्स ऑलवेज एडवाइजेबल अगर घर में यू रियली वांट टू मेक वनीला, ये क्या बोलते हैं, कोल्ड कॉफी ना, रात में क्या करना, बढ़िया कॉफी बनाना, वनीला आइसक्रीम का एक डब्बा खरीदना, उसके साथ नाइसली मिक्स करके डीप फ्रिज में डालना, कॉफी आइसक्रीम हो गया तुम्हारा। अगले दिन दूध में शुगर, कॉफी पाउडर बढ़िया से मिक्स किया, 2 स्पून कॉफी पाउडर को डाल देना, कॉफी आइसक्रीम डाल देना, देन ब्लेंड इट नाइसली, pour it in a glass, serve it with a scoop of coffee ice cream या vanilla ice cream. क्लियर? वो है तुम्हारा कोल्ड। So ice coffee, frappe and cold coffee, they are same. मिल्क किसमें? राइट सर, मेरे पास 3 पोर्शन है, बिना लड़े, बिना एक दूसरे का सर्व हो। इफ यू वांट टू टेस्ट यू कैन।
पीछे सर फास्ट सेकंड में।
हाँ
ये तुम्हारे लिए है नहीं, उनका सेशन। अच्छा सर कैमरा बंद कर दो।